5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Off the Front Podcast. It's been a while, but I'm happy to be back and to bring you an interview that I've wanted to do for quite a while now. I'm joined today by Allison Atkinson, who most of you, especially you cyclists, will know as Wattage Cottage. Allison has had a successful cycling career already, but several years ago she hung up her bike and started over as a CrossFit athlete. Since then, Allison has become a coach at CrossFit Central in Austin, Texas, and even a world champion in the HYROX racing competition. In today's show, we talk to her about what made her leave the sport of cycling and what got her into CrossFit and HYROX racing. We talk about what exactly HYROX racing is and what it was that got her back on the bike here recently, as some of you who follow her on Instagram might have noticed. It's good to see Allison back on the bike, and it was great to sit down and talk for a few minutes about her fitness journey. Before we start I want to wish you all a Happy New Year. This is the first show of 2023, and I want to wish you all the best this year in everything that you do. Whether it's in business, sport, education, or whatever it is, good luck, and I hope that you achieve success in everything you do. All right, now let's get to the show. Okay, so Allison Atkinson, a.k.a. the Wattage Cottage, welcome to the show. Welcome to Off the Front Podcast. I appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I always wanted to talk to you. I always wanted to learn more about you. I've followed you on Strava, I guess, and Instagram for a long time. And you know, I guess maybe you've kept a low profile, but I always wanted to know more. So I'm glad to have you on the show, and I hope that there's other people that want to learn more about you too. So if there is, then they are in the right place. So yes. I want to ask you the first thing, my first question that I was thinking last night. What is the one thing I want to know first thing? And my question is, have you resubscribed to your Training Peaks yet?
I don't think I ever unsubscribed from it. I think I actually received an email that I got a new threshold or something from Training Peaks.
Oh, nice.
And I was like,
nice.
Okay, well, I guess I was on this the whole time and I didn't know. I don't know.
That's funny. You know, so, and we'll get into this too. I kind of have a similar story as what you have, where you went from cycling to the strength world, and kind of, you were more into CrossFit. I was kind of into strength. Not that CrossFit is not strength, but you know, and I kind of got into that for about, I don't know, maybe 4 years. And I was similar, where I never really got off of Training Peaks. I left the window minimized and tried to ignore my CTL as good as I could, as much as possible, because it was like zero, you know. Mm-hmm. But I wondered if you had started looking at your numbers on Training Peaks yet, since you were back on the bike. So tell me a little bit about you. I'm curious, you know, when did you get started in cycling? Are you originally from Texas?
I am. I'm from Austin, Texas. I'm one of the few people that is originally from here, I think.
Yeah. Are there any left?
I don't know. It's Lance Armstrong and me, and that's it.
Okay. Well, see, and that's the thing. Austin is similar to Nashville. I live pretty close to Nashville, and that's kind of the same situation. I hear that Austin's just blowing up, and Nashville is growing so fast. It doesn't look like it used to 10 years ago. We were there yesterday, and it's like it's so much busier and bigger than it used to be, and I'm sure Austin's the same.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're from Austin, so you grew up around a cycling culture, I'm sure. I think, you know, probably cycling with Lance being from there, that it was probably pretty big in Texas. How did you get involved in the sport early on?
Well, honestly, I grew up watching the Tour de France on TV, and in high school, that's when Lance Armstrong was really big in the 90s for me. So I thought it was a cool sport. I never thought I would do it. I never thought I would be racing or doing anything related to cycling. But somehow, I think I was I was taking a lot of like spin classes at Gold's Gym, of all
Hmm.
places, and the instructor there, he rode bikes. Like he was a recreational rider, and he was like, "Hey, come and sign up and do this tour." I think it was called Tour de Cure or something to raise
Okay.
money for diabetes, and it was like a 2 day thing, and you ride 100K each day through the hill country. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sign me up." I didn't have a bike. I'd never ridden outside before, but I
Oh, wow.
thought it was cool. I like didn't want to let this instructor down. I looked up to him and I was like, well, if he thinks I ride outside, maybe I'm good. I don't know. So at the time I was married. I went and talked to my husband and said, "Hey, what do we think about getting some bikes and doing this charity ride?" And he was like, "All
Uh-huh.
right, sure, sure." So I took a couple of months to learn how to clip in and ride around the neighborhood, and that's all I did. And then the event came, and I did it, and I loved it. I'd never done anything
Yeah.
like that. I thought it was the most epic thing ever to ride the 60 miles for 2 days, and that was
Yeah.
it.
That's cool. How old were you at the time when you discovered this?
I was, let's see, that was I I was in my 30s by then. Wait, no, no, no.
Okay.
I think that was before I had my baby. So I was
Okay.
27, 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's around the same time I got into it. And the reason I was asking is because, you raced professionally, didn't you? Like, did you, with, what was the team that you were racing with? It was like the Kroger sponsored team. Was that a professional team?
Guru Cycles.
Okay. Well, and so a lot of people I've talked to over the years um, grew up on a bike as a kid. And so that's what I wondered, that's why I was asking how old you were when you started. So yeah, I guess you had some natural ability that was in there somewhere to move up in the sport that quickly.
Well, I mean, I guess so. I don't
Yeah,
really
well,
know. Um,
I would say you did. Um, I didn't move up that far in the sport. I got into it, I guess, around the same age. It was when I moved back to Tennessee from San Diego, and was a similar age, like kind of late 20s when I got. I'd done it a little bit before I joined the Navy, but I really got into it back at the same time. But I felt that I was like too old to be successful and I think it was really my genetics that were being exposed at the time. So it sounds like you had some natural talent. Did did you have an athletic background like through school, or did you
no,
play any
I
other
mean,
sports?
I played soccer, and I
Okay.
think that helped with my aerobic capacity.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Never really did any kind of like long endurance stuff before.
Well, so after you did that tour, the Tour de Cure, is that it was more of an endurance event. Do you think that, like, how long did it take you to move into the racing part of the sport? Was that because it
It
seems like
didn't
when
take long.
people come out to these. Okay, that's what I was thinking, because people come out to these rides and they do a ride and they kind of feel what it feels like to start going faster on their bike, and they just want to go as fast as they can and jump in with the group. And so I wondered if that was the case with you.
Yeah, I joined this group called, at the time there was this club called the Austin Cycling Camp. And looking back, I guess I did have a natural talent for cycling. I didn't realize it,
Hmm.
but I just was able to keep up with the men on the group, and I trained with those guys. Um, I wasn't the best bike handler, but
Yeah.
I found a way to keep up. I didn't really know how to shift too well or do those technical things, but I had the desire to train and keep coming in and doing all these rides and stuff. So I did my first little race, which I thought was like the coolest thing in the world. I never thought in a million years I was just like, wow, I'm putting a number on a jersey, I'm wearing a kit, I'm doing all this.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd do that. And I just, that first race is burned in my memory forever. And I feel like that was like one of the best days ever in my life.
Yeah. How did that race go for you?
I ended up getting like third place. I didn't know what was going
Okay.
on. Uh, And after that race, that's when I think it was at the end of the race, like when we were in the parking lot, that's when some girl from another team approached me and said, "Hey, come train with us," and joined that team, and then kind of moved up from there.
Yeah. Huh. That's what got you hooked, I guess. That first race.
Yeah, just being part of it, just being part of something that seemed like what I was watching on TV, and
Yeah.
I just didn't think that I was good enough to do that kind of thing. I never knew anyone
Huh.
that rode bikes. I'd kind of seen people out riding bikes, and I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cool.
That's cool. When did you come up with the Wattage Cottage? What's the story behind that?
I did not come up with that name. That name was given to
Okay.
me.
What was it?
It was, I was racing on that team, Guru Cycles, and my teammate, who is Ash Dubin, who I think she went and won like the, what's that crit? I can't remember these names anymore. Oh my goodness. The crit, the fixed gear crit, Red Hook. Is that it?
Okay.
Well,
That sounds
she
familiar.
did that kind of racing. Yeah, she won that
Okay.
whole event. But at the time, we were both like, just recently Cat 2 racers, I think. And she was like, "Hey, you need to get an Instagram account so we can post about our sponsors and stuff." So I was like, okay. So she gave me that Instagram handle. She always took credit for it after that. She's like, "I invented Wattage Cottage." So yeah, I didn't come up with that myself.
Okay. Well, it's creative. I mean, it seems that was I mean, it's so catchy, and especially with cyclists who are looking for watts anywhere they can get them.
Yeah.
So how many years did you race before you found? And this is what I'm curious about. As I've watched, I don't remember when I started following you on Instagram, but it was when you were cycling, and I saw the transition from cycling to the strength world, and like I said, it kind of stuck out at me because I had recently kind of gone through this. I rode and raced a little bit until maybe 2013, and kind of got into the strength world. I was listening to lots of podcasts like Power Athlete and John Welborn, and the first like Barbell Shrugged guy, when those guys were doing that, and got into that. And had Travis Mash as a coach for a bit out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and just got really into lifting, and just kind of forgot about my bike. And so when I saw that you were kind of getting into the strength thing, I was like extra curious. I was like, I wonder how that happened. So like coming from a person like you, because you were more successful in cycling than I was, hands down. Like what was it that caught you, or that kind of got you into the strength world? So much so that, did you sell your bikes also?
I sold everything, man.
Yeah,
I sold it.
okay,
I
I
have
thought you
nothing.
did. Yeah, I saw that you said you had to get another bike, and I thought, I bet she sold her bikes.
I did.
And so, I mean, you were in with the strength world. So what got you hooked in that to the point where you were just like, I'm done with cycling? Were you getting tired of cycling, or was it something that you were so into the strength world that what was it?
I don't think it had anything to do with the sport of, whatever, CrossFit or cycling.
Yeah.
I think it had to do more with the social media and all the demands that came with that I was never really looking to be like an influencer or have a following or do any of that stuff. And it was starting to affect my personal life. It was taking up so much time, and I didn't like the person I was becoming. I felt like everything was about me, and it was just ruining a lot of my relationships. So it was more about getting away from that. And I thought maybe if I just get into a different community, do something completely different and just start over and see what happens. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did that work? Was that the solution you were looking for?
It sounds crazy, but I think I was meant, you can say it's God or the universe or whatever. I was meant to
Hmm.
go into those doors of CrossFit Central. I had seen their gym. Their gym's been around. It's one of the oldest CrossFit
Hmm.
boxes in the country.
Yeah.
Um, I've always driven by or ridden by their gym, and I think I was meant to go in there and become a coach and do all this stuff. Never again, never in a million years thought I'd be a CrossFit coach. Like what's that? I've never
Yeah. Yeah.
or do CrossFit or even go to some competition. Like never in a million years. So um, I was meant to go there. I don't know. It's kind of weird how things work like that.
I it's probably in your personality too, with how you discovered cycling and just did the tour to Cure, did a long ride and kind of got hooked in that, did that race. There's probably something in your personality too where you enjoy the challenge of something like, learning a sport. I know for me, when I got into the strength world and lifting more, it was because I just enjoyed something new, a new challenge. Not that I'd like reached my full potential in cycling, but it was just like I just enjoyed some new movements and doing something different that I was really not good at all. And so, is that probably part of your experience too, where you went into the CrossFit, box and just were, probably not great at what you were trying this first time, and you're like, hey, this is a challenge. I need to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing, and I went to the women's only class, which is kind of like a little easier. I don't want to say easier, but a little slower paced and like not as intense as the 5:30 p.m. co-ed class that's intense.
Right.
So I didn't know what I was doing with the Olympic lifting in particular. I was like, I did not get it. Like, why are we snatching? Why do we have a barbell over our head? Like, I never lifted weights really. I mean, never lifted weights. So it was just really cool to see what I was capable of and challenge myself differently and learn all the CrossFit way of life and the nutrition,
Yeah.
the community, just all that stuff. I'd never had that. And it's just really, it's changed my whole life and my whole perspective on cycling. And I think maybe a lot of that stuff will carry back into cycling as I get back into it, I think.
That's interesting. So the CrossFit community, you said that changed the way you saw the cycling community?
It did. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between the two, but I felt like with the CrossFit community, there's a lot of people holding you accountable for, hey, you're not doing this with the correct form, or you're not pushing yourself to be your best. And it's a really cool group of people there that they want you to be the best version of yourself. And everybody from like the best athletes we have to the people that are, just struggling just to make it through the warm up, everybody's the same.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have just a couple notes written out, and one of the things that I was wanting to talk about were the similarities between strength training and cycling. But that's something that I didn't think about, was the similarities between the two communities, and maybe even the differences too, because the times that I've been around CrossFit especially, and it may just be the culture of CrossFit. So I live just outside of Cookeville, Tennessee, and so that's where CrossFit Mayhem is, and so everybody around
Yeah.
here knows all about CrossFit. Everybody wants to be the next Rich Froning,
Oh, yeah.
but and so it was one of the things when I got out of the Navy. I actually I was going up to CrossFit Mayhem for just a little bit when they were at this old like cinder block building before Rich had won his first games, and it's kind of amazing to see the evolution of that group, but. That was something though that is really interesting though, is how the CrossFit community is, super supportive of everybody that shows up. And maybe I want to see what you think about this too. I'll go out on this limb, but they are probably more supportive than the cycling community. It seems like in the cycling community there are a handful of people who are real supportive, But there's also, it's hard. It's kind of a hard nut to crack. Like if you're a new person coming in with hairy legs or whatever and ankle socks, then it's kind of hard to make friends in the cycling community in the local peloton. Is that?
Oh yeah, I agree.
Would you say that's probably your experience also?
100%. And it might be different for women because there's less of us. But
It's true. Yeah.
I think, to go in and do CrossFit, everybody has the same equipment. Everybody, yeah, there's some, fancier shoes but I think it's kind of it's just, and the community of CrossFit, I feel it's all about like, I don't know, becoming humble to become strong. And you can't be a great, strong athlete if you're a shitty person. And that's one of the lessons I've had to learn. Like, because I think I have kind of been a shitty person, maybe, in the past. And I've had to, and I still have to work to be a good person before I can be a great athlete in that space. So that's the difference I feel.
Well, cycling was always really humbling for me, but CrossFit I'm sure is humbling for everybody, it seems. And especially if you're, like in your situation where you race at a high level and you're coming into something new where you've got to check your ego at the door because.
Oh yeah. There's do you know who I am? Like, no one cares if you have this cycling tan. Like, they're like, what the heck is that? What are you doing with that tan line?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Your FTP doesn't mean much to the group in there.
No.
And I guess it's so much more technical too. I mean, cycling, you either got, the watts or you don't. Of course, there are, you can train obviously and raise that, but with the CrossFit and with lifting, I think this was one of the things that appealed to me too, is that there's so many lifts that are all very technical. And then, there's even things that don't seem complicated, like, hey, let's row. Okay, well, you need to learn how to row, because you're going to look like an idiot rowing, like, if you just jump on the rower and try to go to town on it. Like, that was a thing for me, is like every movement in the strength world and in the CrossFit world had a ton that you needed to learn, and so that was it. That is a challenge to me still. I have a gym in my basement with a rower and I've got a belt squat because I'm old and my back hurts, and
I want one of those.
A squat. That was my splurge during the pandemic, so I love it. I definitely recommend those. But yeah, I mean, like I still try to learn these things. I try to perfect these movements, mainly also so I don't like injure myself, so I can still ride my bike.
Yeah.
But what are some of the similarities that you found between the two, like training in cycling and training in CrossFit and strength? Have you found some similarities there?
Yes.
Completely different.
I've found the similarities. I think it's just the discipline carries over. When I first started training at this CrossFit gym, people thought I was a little nuts because I didn't have a bike. I would spend like 4 hours on the assault bike some days, just kind of riding, or 2 hours, even 2 hours, even 1 hour. Heck, even 1 hour on the assault bike. Like, they're like, what? I don't think that they had, a lot of the clients there came from an endurance background. The owners of the gym, Carrie Kepler, she's a CrossFit Games athlete, and she's now my mentor, and she came from a triathlon background, so she kind of understood me where I was coming from. But I always kind of being able to do the longer metcons and training for that kind of thing is very similar to the training for cycling. But just like the grind of training every day, and I don't know, maybe the mindset is the same, is what I'm getting after. The mindset's the same. The sport's completely different. But you've got to, it's just so much to work on with CrossFit all the time. And then there's your nutrition has got to be on point. Your body type and your weight will influence your gymnastics and how much you can lift and how fast you can run and all that stuff. So it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll be honest, I'll admit that I've gone back and forth between, the cycling to strength, back to cycling. I think maybe, and like I said, I'll admit, I think the reason sometimes I go back to cycling is because I've not dialed in the nutrition aspect of lifting and doing that, because it seems like, with cycling you can kind of be sloppier with your nutrition because you're going to go burn all that off on your 4-hour ride.
Yeah.
But with strength, you got to really be on top of that, or else you obviously can't eat the same as you would if you're training on the bike.
No.
But and that seems like something that you've really paid attention to. Like I said, I've kind of watched over the years where, especially you've been in strength, you're a lot leaner now than you were as a cyclist, right?
Yes. Maybe not
Yeah.
maybe not today, but I hit a point where I was really dialing in during the pandemic, and I was down to like, single digit body fat percentage, and just kind of treating myself like a science experiment. Like, okay, how lean can I get? Could I maintain this? The answer was no, I couldn't maintain that. But it taught me, like, this is what it takes. If you want to have, if you want to be shredded, if you want to have a 6-pack, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. So I think I've kind of found a good balance of where I feel good, like, somewhere between 12 and 16% body fat, where I feel like I have energy. I still, I feel good. I can still kind of eat things that I want to eat.
Did that, when you got really lean like that into the single digits, did that affect any kind of numbers? Because I'm comparing it to like cycling. I think one of the mistakes I made once was thinking that I needed to be very, very lean and small in cycling, and ended up losing power. Did you notice that with the strength movements also?
Absolutely. Because I think at that point, I hadn't really discovered how strong I was. So then after I got to that, after the pandemic and when we started getting back to the gym, I said, okay, I'm going to see how muscular can I get? How much weight can I put on in a good way? Like, I'm going to bulk. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to do the Mayhem training program. So I did that for like a whole year. I ended up putting on about 30 pounds.
Wow.
30 pounds. I went from like 125 to close to 160, over 160.
Huh.
And I was able to.
Good plug for the Mayhem
lift.
Training program there.
Yeah. It was
effective.
great. I was strong. I felt good. I wasn't too crazy about the way I looked. I felt like I looked really big. I'd never been that big before. So that was kind of strange for me. But I think when I was doing that programming, that's kind of when I was at the height of my CrossFit, I guess. I kind of got a little taste of what it's like to be competitive a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting time, I guess.
Well, I've never been single digits body fat, so I think it's a real accomplishment just to have your nutrition dialed in like that, and just to be able to do that. Like I said, when I got into strength and tried to bulk, I ended up probably putting on too much body fat and ended up having to start doing endurance activities to burn it off, which is not the best way to do that, but I just never had it dialed in. So I think that's good. I was looking at HYROX, right? Is that?
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out what is HYROX, and I found your reel on Instagram where you said, what is HYROX? And I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I found out what it is. But so if I'm not mistaken, it's sort of CrossFit movements, but they're divided by like more running. Is that kind of correct?
Yes. There's no gymnastics. There's no barbell. It would be, I was never great at any of that stuff anyway. And I've always been, I mean, when you put me out on a competition floor with other CrossFit athletes, I was like the smallest, one of the skinnier, I guess, girls out there. So I don't know if I'm really built for CrossFit, but I was built for HYROX, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask, because you mentioned body type, and that was my situation too. Like, as much as I loved lifting and, doing clean and jerks and snatches and all these big movements, I was not built for that. I'm kind of a smaller guy. I'm, been riding for a long time, and I think when I was in college, I wanted to be big, and now I'm like, okay, this is the body frame I have. I'm not meant to carry 200 pounds of muscle. And so that's when I saw that last night. I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's kind of a blending of both. Like, people maybe like us who have not traditionally carried around pounds and pounds of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But, tell me about that. Is that what you competed in those HYROX competitions?
Yes. And I'm still competing.
Okay.
Last year I won the world championships for the women's age 40 to
nice.
44. And I want to go one more year and win it one more time, because I feel like you need to win. If you're going to do something big like that, you need to do it twice.
Yeah. It's true.
So I'm still training for that this year. So that's my focus. It's a lot of running. I spend probably half of my training running right now. But the craziest thing about HYROX, and like, I didn't know what the heck this thing was, that a guy that promotes HYROX, Eric, we call him E-Rock. I don't know what his last name is. Anyway, he came into our gym. He was friends with our owner, Carrie, and he's a CrossFit, he's a games athlete. And he came in and he was like, yeah, come in and do this HYROX. And Carrie, the owner, was like, hey, I think Allison should go do it. She's got good endurance, and this would be right up her alley. And I was like, all right. I went and did the event that came to Austin, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And the sled push is like really, really heavy, and it's just amazing.
I saw that.
I mean, I loved it. So I've been hooked on it ever since.
Is that popuit near CrossFit Central? Like, I'd not heard of it until I saw you posting about it.
Yeah, it came from Germany, so it's big in Europe. And now there's a lot of CrossFit gyms that are becoming HYROX affiliates, and we are now a CrossFit or a HYROX affiliate. So we do HYROX classes. I've got like 20 athletes that are going to go and compete in 8 weeks in Houston. So it's a good thing for people that maybe we're aging. We don't want to be doing snatches. We don't want to spend all this time learning how to snatch, but we want to be challenged. So it's great for those people.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out, because I've recently, I'm trying to think when this started. I recently started lifting again, and that's actually why I started this podcast, because I was trying to kind of explore both worlds and like try to be moderate about what I was doing. Like, I'd like to ride a little bit, but also still use the gym some. And I've never been able to do that. I'll lift a whole bunch and get really into that, and then I'll touch the bike again, and I'm like, oh man, I want to go like hire a coach and learn and do this again.
Oh God.
And yeah, I mean, it's real dangerous. But I've started lifting again, and I'm doing my best to keep riding, but I do miss that endurance aspect of training. Like I feel like, even I was training in jiu-jitsu one time for a few months, and it was like I never felt like I was getting a great workout out of it, because I was used to a 3-4 hour ride.
Yes, it changes your perspective on what's hard.
I know. And what constitutes being a good workout, because I'll come down to the gym and do a workout, do some squats and some deadlifts or whatever I've got going on, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm done. Okay, I didn't really sweat, and
I know.
So
I know.
I'll have to check out. I'll have to follow up on HYROX and check that out, because it does sound really interesting.
Yeah,
and it sounds like
it's
something
fun
that I would
to
be
train
interested in
for.
doing too.
Yeah, it's a good thing. You can still ride bikes. Like, you can still that will help you at HYROX, I think. Just being good at endurance. But yeah, it's awesome. It's growing sport.
How much running would you say? I think in that video you said that most of the events are separated by 1 kilometer run?
Yeah.
Is that a standard, or is that
is.
just okay?
Yeah, it's the same course around the world, and there's even talk of HYROX becoming an Olympic sport, which is crazy.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But the people behind the Ironman triathlon are the people that are kind of behind HYROX.
Okay.
That's what I heard. It could be a rumor. I'm not sure, but
check it out.
It's supposed to be the same all around the world.
Okay, that's cool. That sounds to me like a lot of running at this point. I've done my best over the past several years to not run at all.
Oh man!
Yeah, I know. I just running. I was like, I don't want to run,
I know
but
that keeps a
I'll
lot of
check that
people
out.
from the. I said if we could at least have like a cycling division, like maybe you could run or bike.
Yeah,
That'd be
now we're
great.
talking. That would be good. That would be nice. I heard the military was using cycling as part of their PFTs, like instead of running. I was like, oh man, sign me up.
Oh,
That sounds easy.
well, that sounds really easy. People are getting
I
soft.
know,
Come on now.
I know. Well,
I don't let my
I was like, let's.
athletes get out of running. I make sure and make them run um,
Yeah.
at our gym.
Well, it's good for him, I'm sure. No one was making me do it, and so I was able to weasel my way out of running for several years. So like, what got you recently? And I think this is really interesting because I saw you. I'm trying to think of when I first saw. I think maybe you. What was the first? Did you post a ride? Maybe you posted a ride on Strava or something. Something caught me, and I was like, oh, she's riding again. I thought you're, and I was like, I wonder if she's gonna get hooked like I did because as a person who's been into the cycling world and like I'm sure you love the culture also, just the European part of the culture. Like I said, when I touched the bike again, I was like, oh man, I remember this feeling, and so I was watching to see. I was like, I wonder if Allison's gonna get back into cycling. So what got you? What was the story about your return to cycling? How'd that happen?
This was actually a client of mine that I do personal training at CrossFit Central, and I got a new client named Patrick, and Patrick is a cyclist, and I never worked with a cyclist before, so it was kind of cool. And he was talking about his rides on the weekend, and he trains with a group that I used to train with years ago. So I
Yeah.
knew some of the people he was talking about, and he was talking about they went and rode 100 miles on Sunday, and it was just great. And it was like everything flowed, and there was no flat tires, and the route they did. And I was like, I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just kind of seeing him, I train him like twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And so we just got to talking about cycling, and it was cool to have a cycling friend again. Like I haven't had a
Yeah.
cycling friend in a very long time.
Huh.
He brought me a cycling cap one day, the Rafa Cycling Club, I guess. I put it on and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not done cycling. And I had been thinking about it a long time. Like, actually, not a day really went by without thinking about cycling. Like, why did
Yeah.
I just quit? I wonder what would happen if I just got a bike.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, a lot of that time, and this is probably something that you did also. A lot of the time when I was lifting a lot, I did think about. I would relate everything to cycling because it was what I knew the most. And so if I was talking like volume and intensity about lifting, I always it was always some relation to cycling. I was comparing to how volume and intensity worked. It always seemed like they worked the same to me. Like it was easier to recover from high volume, or sorry, from high intensity. It took a little longer to recover from high volume. Um,
Yes.
and that's like you can go out and bang out some intervals on the bike and do that just about every day, or you can go do like with Travis Mash, he was doing a lot of like Olympic weightlifting, and those guys lift heavy every day, but they don't do a ton of volume, and so it was those things were real similar. And like I would always relate everything back to the bike. Is that how that always crept into your mind when you were not riding? Just you're coaching, so a lot of those things were relating to the bike too.
Yeah. But then I think I think my perspective from being on the bike was just just completely different. I don't know.
Hmm.
I, I think I would, if I were to ever program workouts, they would just be these long workouts. Like you guys need to be doing high repetition, like 100 reps, 200 reps.
Yeah.
Just do these crazy things because if you don't do these things, you're not going to get better. Like you need to do these long, crazy workouts. Or if you're going to lift, you better lift really heavy. Like, you need to be like dying, like,
Yeah.
because I remember that's how I got good by really probably overtraining. And
Yeah.
that overtraining, I have that same mentality now where people around me are like, you're overtraining. And I'm like, I'm not overtraining. Maybe you're not doing enough, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I relate. Um, I was never really smart about my training, I guess you would say. Probably shouldn't
You know
say
what
that since
though?
I am a coach, but you
Well,
know,
it works. I mean, I tell you, I've done these podcasts. I've talked to lots of people, um, who have done it so many different ways. That was one of the things that I learned real quick was that there's so many different ways to get better at the sport. Debbie Milne, who's a Masters national champion, like 7 or 8 time Masters national champion, I was always surprised that she did her rides. She'd just go out and try to ride fast. She'd just look at average mile an hour, and so kind of the
yep,
same. She was just going hammering herself every day, and that her physiology was able to handle that. And that may be what's going on with you too, where it may take more for you to, for your body to adapt and to get better. So, is that still the mentality you have now when you're coaching? Are you still throw the long workouts at your athletes? Are you trying to I guess if you're coaching HYROX, I guess that would probably be a good thing.
yeah.
But do you throw the short ones at them too sometimes?
You know, I don't program the CrossFit workouts, luckily for the CrossFit folks. Um, so, I do still coach CrossFit. So we might have like Fran one day and it's this,
Uh
and I'm tempted to have them like, okay, guys, so now
huh.
we're going to do this next, and I got to stop
Right.
myself. Like, this is a different type of train. Like, okay, this is high intensity. You don't really understand it. It's not your thing. So just shut up and let them do their Fran.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the first time I did Fran, like, I was like, is that it? And everyone looked at
Yeah.
me like I was just an asshole. Like, what are they're like on the floor, and I'm like, is that it? I had scaled it, of course, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
finished it in like a couple minutes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna go work out now, guys.
Yeah. This is the
Um,
part. This is where we start. This is our warm up is done.
it's a warm up, right? But I do have a pretty dedicated group of athletes now that they love the long workouts. We did, man, it was like 10 degrees in Austin a couple weeks ago, raining.
Yeah.
And I had a couple people come out and do this thing, the 12 days of Christmas, how we do the 12 days of
Uh,
Christmas. We had a
I
HYROX
saw that.
version, and it took, like an hour and 47 minutes or something for
Yeah.
the fast guys. And they were out there running in the 10-degree cold rain. And I mean, but there's a group of people that like, they get it, they love it, like that are not cyclists. I thought just the cyclists were crazy or the endurance athletes, but I'm picking out the people that love to suffer, and it's cool because they never, I don't think that they would get that from a regular CrossFit class.
No, no doubt. I saw the 12 Days of Christmas workout, and it looked brutal. It looked long. I watched it. I was about to go to bed last night. And I was kind of looking at those things, and I was like, oh man. And it takes a person who's done some of those things. What is it, like a 9-calorie row or 9-calorie ski? I think was
Yep.
one of the things.
Hmm.
And like a person who's never done that would be like, it's not too bad.
Yeah, nine
And then you're
calories.
like, oh no, some of those things are terrible. What was the 4, like 40 yards of lunges or
Yeah,
something?
that was the worst part. That because you end
That
up
sounded
doing
bad.
it how many times?
Yeah,
Because it goes like the. I think I
you
saw
repeat it every
someone
time.
post. Yeah, you repeat it, but I saw someone on Instagram post their version, and it was just like, yeah, just go 12 to one time, one round. And I was like, that's not how it works. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no, no. That's
uh,
that's the warm up.
that's a warm up. But yeah, that it was rough. But that those kind of workouts remind me of those hard days on the bike where you just suffer, and I love that so much.
Yeah,
Um, it's great.
those are those type of like what are they, like chipper? Is that what they call them? Chipper
Hmm.
style workouts. We just I liked those also, and that's probably coming from that cycling background too, where you can't approach it with the same intensity as you would with Fran. It's going to take you a while. You're going to have to back off a little bit. Just keep moving, keep doing these things. And those are fun. I do like those.
Yeah.
I'll have to. Are you posting workouts? I mean, I know you said that you're not writing the CrossFit workouts, but are there like some HYROX specific workouts that you are writing, or are you just coaching the movements? Or like, if I wanted to find some HYROX programming, where do I go to find that?
So right now, we're talking about how to expand our program, our HYROX program. And part of that might be that I'm coming in and writing the programming for HYROX. Because right now,
Okay.
we get our programming from the affiliate, like the head of the affiliates. So
Yeah.
just
Okay.
like how CrossFit.com started, there's a
Right.
HYROX, that sends us their stuff. So um, I'm going to be getting into that whole thing soon. And
Okay.
right now, I write the workouts for our long Saturday class. So now
Okay.
that we have our Instagram page, I'll start posting those workouts. And I post workout of the week on Wednesday, which I pick from various other accounts in the HYROX space. But
Okay.
I think it would be cool. My goal is to eventually be like known as a HYROX coach, where you can get programming from me and I'll train you, train
Yeah.
people online, not just in my gym.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering about, because like I said, I haven't heard of it around here. I know CrossFit Mayhem, they're obviously into CrossFit. And so that was one thing I was going to ask you, is like, where can people find that, if that's something they wanted to look at, or if that was available, any kind of programming online, or, I'm sure that with cycling, how that works with online, coaching online. And it's always been really effective for me to have coaching online, especially with cycling, obviously with all the, with Training Peaks uploading all the data. But I'll keep an eye on that for sure, about how the HYROX progresses, and if you're starting to do online programming, I'll definitely check that out, because it does sound appealing. And I was
Yeah.
going to ask you also, so you're, tell me more about your plans, your return to cycling. Are you going to try to get back into racing? Are you going to try, really, I guess what I was kind of wondering is how is, strength training and HYROX and the CrossFit movements, how's that going to continue to be a part of your life with cycling? Are you going to try to do it all? Are you going to try to make a real run at cycling again? Like, what's your plan for all that?
I'm 41 years old.
Okay. Hey, me
You
too.
know,
Me too.
right now I'm thinking about my longevity more so than going
I hear that.
out and, going into the racing scene again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I consider doing, the age group stuff, the masters, or maybe going back into the time trialing and trying to go to the compete with that? That would be cool. But as far as like racing in a road race or a crit,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to get back into that right now. Um, it makes me nervous, man. I'll tell you. Just the crashes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little traumatized. I'm a little traumatized.
I am exactly in the same place as you are on that, because I'm trying to think. I had a coach. My last coach was Brendan Hausler, and this was 2020, I guess it was. And I just, since that time, actually, it was since the pandemic. There was no racing that really went on in 2020. And so I have not had any desire to line up on a start line again since that point. I love riding my bike. I love going out and doing hard workouts and doing long rides and doing hard rides, and like, I've even thought about hiring a coach just to be like, hey, I just want to go out and like race the Tuesday night ride, just kind of like go out and be competitive in that. But even that, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm the same. It's you probably had more crashes than I have. Not that it's just
Yeah.
I've never broken anything on the bike. Luckily, so far, I've been lucky to escape any kind of major crash. But I also don't want to experience those at 41 years old either.
No.
So I totally understand where you are in terms of like wanting to get back on the bike and do some riding, but just not really to jump in that road race scene right away. If you
Yeah.
looked at, so this is something too that is kind of interesting. with with road racing, weight, the power to weight ratio is so important. Have you looked at doing any kind of Zwift competitions? I don't know if you hate indoor cycling as much as I do. Indoor cycling is one thing, but Zwift is kind of interesting because the power to weight ratio is not quite as important as it is out on the road.
Yeah. And I love Zwift.
Do you?
I love it. I would definitely do those Zwift races because it's convenient. I love it when things are functional, just
Yeah.
practical. Like especially like I can stay home. It's safe. And I know there's a lot of people are like, oh, blah, 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 that's not real racing. But, just for fun and fitness, like I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think, yeah, I don't even remember how that power to weight ratio works. I recently did an FTP test. Like
Yeah.
that was one of the first things I did was just do an FTP test. And I
It's bold.
lost, let's see, I weighed around 140 pounds, and my FTP, the last time I did it was 235.
Okay.
And now I weigh about the same. I've got kind of gone back to the same weight, 140 to 145, and I lost. I was down to 215, so I lost. Is that
Okay.
20 points? Yeah.
But you can make that. You can regain that pretty quickly, I bet.
And the way my weight is distributed now is completely different. Like
Yeah.
my upper body is a lot not bigger, but I just have muscle mass in my upper body that I didn't have before, and probably lost a little bit of muscle mass in my legs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting because I thought I could squat a lot, for my age. I could squat and deadlift really well. But that doesn't translate, I don't think, to the bike so much.
No, it didn't for me either. When I went
Yeah.
back and I'll see pictures of when I just started getting into cycling again, and I'm like, man, my legs were giant back then. I had a
Yeah.
lot more size on my legs,
Yeah.
but I was like, I was not any stronger on the bike. It didn't translate for me. I was expecting to be like this FTP beast, and it just didn't happen.
No. Did
Sad,
not
sad
work.
story. I know. I think though, I mean, it's not too bad if you just went from 235 to 215. I'd say you can, if you aim to regain those 20 points, I bet that would happen pretty quick if you spend some time on the bike, which you know how that all works. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that'd be too much of a problem.
Yeah. My goal is to get back to that same FTP just to see if I can do it. And then also to go and do that same group ride that I used to do on Saturdays and see if I can hang with that group. It's probably different, probably a whole new generation of people in it, but
Yeah, be
that would
racing
be
with
cool to
these kids.
do.
One thing that I do find that did translate well to the bike, and you'll have to see how this works out for you, is the like high torque movements, or not movements, but the high torque situations on the bike. Like my knees were they could handle those things a lot better. I used to have like this nagging knee pain in my left knee for years on the bike. And then when I got into the strength stuff and came back to the bike, it's like all that squatting is like, I guess, I don't know if it just built up muscle around my knees or whatever it was, but I could really handle the high torque situations on the bike a lot better. My first coach gave me some he called them power rides. He'd go out and ride at like a 55 cadence for half the ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it seemed like, from doing the high torque squats and things like that, that did translate over to me or for me. So kind of curious to see how that works out for you also.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm definitely more durable now than I was before. I mean, I'll be out on a trail run and I'll twist my ankle and it'll just like, oh, that probably is not good. But then it kind of, all right, I'll keep going. It's fine. And I'm okay. That's why I think there's a lot of, cyclists that are our age or aging. They're not racing professionally. They're just riding for fun, but they won't go in and touch weights because they think it's going to make them bulky or take away from their cycling. But Man, I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of benefit to it for longevity, to prevent injuries, and just make your overall fitness better over
Yeah.
time. It's a
I
huge, I
100% agree
mean,
with
just
that.
carrying groceries. Like when I was on the bike, when I was like at my fittest on the bike, I remember getting winded carrying groceries to my up 3 stories to my apartment. And I'm like, what
Yeah.
is like, I'm not an athlete. Like, what is this? Now I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel strong. I can lift things. Like, I can be useful if somebody has to like push their car off the road. I can help them, you know? I
That's
couldn't do
funny.
that before.
That is, yeah, no, on the very first episode of this podcast, I told a story about me, like how I had to get some help getting the Christmas decorations upstairs because I was like so just scrawny and weak from so much cycling. I was like this, you know how it is. You just kind of get like adapted to that one movement, and anything else, any lateral movements or anything else, you're like near death, it seems like, and I was pretty
Yeah.
sure I was gonna like break my back carrying some Christmas decorations upstairs, which is really sad. And I was like, okay, I can't.
Yeah.
I felt fragile, and I think that's a lot. There's a lot to be said. I totally agree with what you're saying about the importance of strength, and for cyclists, especially the cyclists that are our age, just from increasing your durability and just not being so damn fragile. So,
Yeah. Being able to play with the kids. Like my mom is aging. Like I'm taking care of her more and more these days, and being
hmm
able to lift her up and help her do like just things like that for your life is just
yeah,
important. And I mean, I would not be able to handle that spending hours on the bike every single day at
right.
this age. Like it would just would not work for me anymore.
Well, it sounds like a really good plan in terms of kind of doing both. And like I said, that was my that's what I wanted to do with this podcast, was to talk to all different kinds of people. Talk to cyclists, talk to doctors. I was talk to some strength coaches, just to try to figure out a way to mix it all in, because that was when I felt the best, when I had some endurance training, but when I also was not completely weak in all other aspects of life. And so
Yeah.
I'm really interested in seeing how this next chapter for you kind of unfolds. And and really, I wouldn't be surprised if you're stronger on the bike, because I think you look at the modern, the current pro peloton. Peter Sagan is like, he's kind of an all-around athlete. He's strong, relatively speaking. He's not like Egan Bernal or someone who's just really skinny. Peter Sagan is strong. The Matthew Vanderpool and Wout van Aert, those guys are pretty strong people. Like, they have that background in cyclocross, and I was always impressed with how strong they were. And for me, it was like, oh, it's because they're athletes. Like, their upper bodies are not completely emaciated. They have some all-around strength, and I think that surely transfers to the bike too. So I'm really curious to see how you, and like I said, in this new chapter, how you do in cycling, having spent, 2 or 3 years, I guess it was, just exclusively on strength.
Yeah. I mean, it's been long. It's been almost 5 years now.
Has it really?
It's been a long
Okay, I didn't
time.
realize it.
I don't
I didn't
know.
realize it had been that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think surely that'll transfer over to the bike, and I'll definitely be watching it. I'm really curious to see how it all goes.
Yeah. The hybrid
Um,
athlete, definitely. I would consider myself a hybrid athlete. I do ride bikes, but I'm not going to be all just a cyclist.
that's cool. I'll be a hybrid athlete with you.
There
There's
you
two of us
go.
now.
Hybrid
We're starting a
masters
new thing.
athletes.
I'm definitely in that category.
Do you follow Hunter McIntyre?
I don't. I
Look him
don't.
up on
I will
Instagram.
though.
He was the HYROX world champion past couple of years, but he also did like he rides bikes and does all kinds of cool stuff, and
Okay.
he's a character, so he'll motivate you. And also Nick Bear.
Oh yeah, I do
Nick
follow
Bear was
him.
Bear Nutrition. He's a hybrid
Yeah,
athlete, does everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do follow him. Is he in Texas also?
He's in Austin, yeah, or in Round Rock,
Okay.
just north of Austin.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Hey, he's incredible. Like, to carry that much size and to run ultra marathons, I don't.
yeah.
That's pretty legit. Matt Chan and Cherie Chan, his wife, are kind of hybrid athletes too. They do a lot of mountain biking, and of course, he's got the CrossFit background too. And so, um,
Yeah.
so and maybe the common thread between all of us is we're all like a little bit older when we can't
Yeah.
go out and just do one thing like that. So that's
Exactly.
hopeful. That's hopeful. There's more of us out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, we'll tell everyone that's listening how they can learn more about you if they want. I know you've got the Instagram. Is the HYROX Instagram? That's a new page, correct?
I just started that like a couple days ago. Yeah. It's called HYROX
Okay, I
Austin.
thought so.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm trying to post
HYROX
content
Austin.
on there that's kind of funny.
I
I
did
don't
notice.
put as much thought as like I did for my Wattage Cottage, where I would be like, oh, everything needs to be like great, perfect, this and that. I just kind of
Yeah.
post whatever we're doing that day, or what's going on with my training for the World's Championship, which is going to be in the UK in Manchester.
Okay. Okay.
So it'll be
Cool.
kind of following that journey. But all the cycling content is going to be still on Wattage Cottage. Yeah, that's it.
Well, I started following last night the Instagram HYROX page.
I
and
saw
I
you.
was-
We have almost 100 followers now, so we're getting
Oh,
big
sweet.
time.
Nice. Yeah, I was thoroughly entertained by the reels. I thought they were good. I did like the what's the word? Just the kind of fun nature, and so I hope that's less stressful than the Wattage Cottage page was that
Yeah.
made you want to get out of cycling. Hope that doesn't become that.
I hope so too. I'm trying to just, I think I don't take myself as seriously as I did before.
Yeah.
That's the big difference, I think.
It's good. It's good. I hope the page stays up for a long time, and I'll definitely be following. And I can't wait to see what you do on the bike. Did you buy? I was going to say when you get a bike. I can't wait to see
I
what you
have
do
a
on the
bike.
bike. Did you buy it? Did you get
look,
another one?
I got a bike off Craigslist, and
wow.
I was like, I want a bike. I don't want to go out and get the latest and greatest, because what if I
Yeah.
decide I don't want to do it? So I found a guy in Austin that he's pretty good, does a lot of repairs and refurbishes bikes. I found like an old look frame
Okay.
with like Durace. It's like from the 90s. I don't know. It works. It doesn't fit me very
Yeah.
well. I don't know if I'll be able to like take it. It'll probably be okay outside. I think I'm gonna have to go and get like a new bike pretty soon here.
Yeah.
To go
Oh,
on these
man.
longer rides.
I hope you saved $12,000. I hope you set aside $12,000 for that new bike. Those are crazy. Man. That's what,
Yeah.
honestly, that's funny. You mentioned crashing in races. I always hated doing criteriums because I'm a high school teacher full time, and I don't make enough money to go buy a new bike. I can't be crashing my bike in a crib.
Yeah. Like, this is expensive, guys. I can't be crashing in my kit. Like, I can't be
That's right.
crashing this kit, putting holes in it.
Can't have that. That's right.
We got to maintain
one of my
everything.
teammates. One of my teammates crashed. We were doing the River Gorge Criterium down in Chattanooga, and he crashed and he had a new Cervelo, and it broke his seat stay. And I was like, and he was like cool about it. I was like, you obviously have a better job than I do, because I would not be cool about that. So I would be crying. I'm
It is
still
a
riding
very
my
expensive
2008.
sport.
Yeah, it is. I'm still riding my 2008 Cervelo R3, and I love it. The only thing original on it's the frame. I've replaced everything. It's got new wheels, new components. Everything's new, but it's still that original white Cervelo R3.
Oh,
It's
okay.
pretty slick.
It's a good
I like it.
bike. Hey, if I saw you in a group, I'd be like, I wouldn't be snobby. I'd be like, hey, it's a
Yeah,
bike.
Yeah, it is a bike, and it is currently not my limitation. That is myself. So until my bike becomes the limitation, I'll just
There
keep
you go.
riding it. So
I like that.
yeah, well, that's the philosophy to never have to buy a new bike for me. So, but yeah, I appreciate your time and taking the time to talk to everyone. Tell me one more time. So you have Wattage Cottage on Instagram and the HYROX Austin.
Yes, you got it.
Okay,
That's what it is.
cool. Well, I'll be watching, and I hope that everybody who's listening will follow along too. And and see how you do in this new chapter of your life. And I'm excited. And again, thanks so much for joining me on the Off the Front podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Allison, for taking the time to talk with me today. I'm looking forward to checking in again and finding out how your training is going now that you're back on the bike, especially. As some of you might know, finding the balance between the strength world and cycling world is something that I have constantly struggled with, and it challenges me every day. So it's really nice to talk to other athletes that have navigated these waters also. Before I go, I just want to remind you to leave a review or a rating if you are enjoying the show. It makes the show easier for others to find, and it's nice for me to see that people are enjoying what we're doing. So until next time, stay fast, stay strong, and we'll talk soon.